Hey guys, Dan here with special guest Merlin.
Sometimes known as Joe.
And we're in yet another new segment of the channel.
Look, Dan reviews it, spin-offs keep growing, segments keep
Listen,
growing,
we're just
expansion.
throwing things against the wall, seeing what sticks. And this is something we've talked about for a few years.
It's another one like Frasier Fridays, man.
Yeah.
All right,
We've
finally
been discussing it, and I thought,
can't say no to
this thing is in the news because they just bought out Fox.
This thing, what could
They've
it be?
got 3 live-action movies this year that are based on their famous properties. You got Dumbo, Aladdin, and what's the other one? The Lion King.
Those are some obscure films, Dan.
So, of course, we are talking about Disney, the Walt Disney Company, all of this.
Basically, it's not going out of style anytime soon.
No. So basically, we had talked for a long, long time about doing the classic set of, at the time, I think it was like 53 movies or something. Tangled was number 50.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're up to, I think Ralph Breaks the Internet was 57 or 58. Frozen 2 then is the next one. So they're definitely getting up there in the numbers. But I thought we would go back to the beginning. And you're going to join me for just the cartoons, the main 50 whatever cartoons.
I'm going to join you for like the Disney animated
the classics.
The big stuff,
But
yeah.
I am going to actually attempt to review
all the movies, right?
every Disney movie going back to the early, Robinson Crusoe, Treasure Island, the live-action classics as well.
So that's going to be, is that going to be like live action theatricals, or are you going to go like TV movies, stuff like that?
No, I'm not going to do like the wide world of Disney TV movies.
Okay.
Just because,
Too much?
first of all, most of those are hard to come by since that show started in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So most of those you can't even find. But,
Gotcha.
yeah, I just theatrically released Disney films.
Okay.
I mean, I may get into some of the Disney Channel ones of the last maybe 20 years because they're a lot more accessible. The really popular ones, like your High School Musical, stuff like that. But
Gotcha.
But for now, we're going to start with, we go back to the beginning. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first DVD edition, which is what I have. I'm going to go over all the different editions.
So you're going to kind of do a DVD review as well.
Yeah, so, well, and history of the movie as well.
Interesting.
Because anybody can just say, well, I watched this movie and here's what I thought of it.
True.
And when we're talking about these movies that have been reviewed for the last 70 years...
Something new.
It's a little bit, pedestrian, I guess, to just say,
pedantic,
well, I watched Snow White today and it was good.
Really?
Well, no kidding. It's, the original classic. So, I guess...
More of a discussion.
What do you want to talk about? Do you want a history of the movie? Do you want me to talk about the features on the DVD? I think that should be last. Talk about the DVD itself.
That's kind of like a good bookend. Like this
Yeah.
particular edition, stuff if you want
So
to.
that's what we'll do. I'll talk about the history of the movie.
Okay.
We'll talk about the movie,
Okay.
and then I'll tell you about the different
Elements,
things on the
features,
DVD.
stuff. Cool.
So okay. So this
Format
is
established.
format established. Sometimes you just do it on the fly,
I
on
like
the
it.
air.
Like unedited, unrehearsed.
unedited.
Just
Well, that's how we do it here sometimes. On Dan Reviews It, and that's okay.
natural.
Yeah, natural. And at some point, I have the collection of all of the Disney cartoons, like the shorts, Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Silly Symphonies, all of that. I would love to review, not individually, but review the sets I have.
I mean, you got the classic Goofy where he's like on the ski trip or whatever.
I'm sure I do.
Oh man, that's a surreal.
I have, I think
episode.
I think there's 2 volumes of the best of Goofy.
Or weird.
All right, so this movie, first of all, is 83 minutes long. It's a shorty.
Fairly.
Okay? But all of them were back then.
True.
So here's the deal.
Tell me about it.
This movie, nobody wanted Walt to make this movie.
Yes.
0 people.
Mm-hmm.
His brother Roy, who is also his business partner.
It's gonna be a bomb.
His wife.
No one's gonna
this
like
is
it.
Stupid.
Cartoons for kids.
Everyone was calling it the Disney Follies because it was a money loser. What are you doing? So here's the deal
no
with
one
it.
had faith in this movie.
It started as a sort of thought in 1934, and then it finally came to the big screen the end of 37, beginning of 38. By that point, they had a $1.5 million budget, which at the time, an expensive movie cost $1 million.
Sure.
1.5 is ridiculous. But then, of course, as we know, huge hit.
What do you say?
By the end of 1938, it was the #1 movie of the year. Earned over $7 million by the end of just the original run.
It's a good profit right there.
Seen by more people than any other film in history
At the time.
by that point.
Nice.
Lifetime gross, now this is with all the re-releases,
Sure.
$418 million.
Whew.
And that's not adjusted for inflation either.
So that's straight.
Adjusted for inflation, it's in the top 10.
All right.
Which makes sense. It's
Because-
been re-released over and over and over again.
And back in time, yeah.
And I think that's just theatrical. I don't think that even counts
DVD sales
the
and
videos,
merchandising
yeah.
and everything. So much from Snow, for sure.
So the problem was, as you said, nobody thought people would want to sit through a whole movie.
I bet,
They saw the shorts. They liked the Mickey shorts. They liked Betty Boop shorts, Felix the Cat, this, that, and the other.
The cartoons,
But
that long
people,
shorts. They were
Popeye shorts were at the time. But
This is
a
like
whole movie of animation, you know, what are you going to do, Walt? It's going to be all gags for 83 minutes. We don't get it.
There's no cereals,
Yeah, so...
no newsreel.
Well, yeah, right? So here's what he did. He said, well, I don't want a gag-only movie, but I do need some semblance of jokes in this film. So he offered his animation staff, and I guess the writing staff, more to the point, $5 per gag that they used in the movie. $5 then was worth about $100 or something now. So, not bad.
No.
You know? And so that sort of helped people along with the gags. So there have been 8 re-releases theatrically of this movie.
Wow.
Okay? And this started the whole idea of the Disney Vault. Do you know why the Disney Vault exists?
No, I don't. Tell me.
Okay. So what Walt did was, because obviously when this came out and the earlier movies, Dumbo and Fantasia and stuff, TV wasn't even a thing.
Not really.
So you
no.
couldn't show it on TV. So every 7 to 10 years, he would re-release these movies theatrically so a whole new generation of children could see them.
Nice.
So when they stopped releasing them theatrically and started putting them on video, which the first video of this and Laserdisc was 1994. This did not come out for home viewing till the 90s.
Wow, that's
Okay.
late, actually.
Because they were still re-releasing it in theaters. It got released in 87 and 93 to theaters. So they brought that idea of the Disney... Well, they didn't call it the Disney Vault at the time, but of bringing their movies out every 7 to 10 years to the home market. And whoever was running it at the time, I guess it was Michael Eisner, said, you know what, this is going to work because people are going to rush out and buy it because then they can't get it for the next whatever.
10 years and the prices will go up.
And it worked out because it sold 24 million copies within the first year
Wow.
of VHS release, I should say.
I think I got it, too.
Did you get the... I think I might have the VHS.
I'm pretty sure I do. I had a lot of those Disney VHS.
This is the first one that I bought, I think my parents have the VHS.
Wow.
This is the first one that's mine. And it's the 2001 DVD. That's the first DVD release of it. And it's been released twice on Blu-ray, 2009, 2016. It is always the first one in the series. Whatever, they label all the series. This one is the Platinum Edition. The VHS was called the Masterpiece Edition. The Blu-rays are the Diamond or the Signature. Snow White is always the first one to be released.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. So that is the history of the movie. And I've learned much more from the bonus features that we'll get into a little bit later.
Nice.
But so let's talk about it. Let's talk about everybody knows the story. It's based on the fairy tale and, Poison Apple. The queen turns into a witch, 7 dwarves, the animals.
Music.
There's music. The guy's supposed to kill her, and then he doesn't.
Yeah, she's
I kind of forgot about that part.
Well, what would you like to talk about first? I mean, I know, obviously, we know about the plot. We know that we obviously think that it's probably pretty good.
Yes. Okay, well, I feel like I've talked a lot because of the history of the movie. So I guess maybe let's hear your thoughts about the movie. I have some things written down about it.
Okay.
That I'll see what you think about, but...
Okay.
I don't know. What aspect would you like to talk about first?
Well, I guess the first thing that
you mentioned to me off air that you had a very different experience viewing it today than when you were a child.
Well, you have to understand.
I'm interested in that.
I think it's probably been a good 15 or 20 years since I've seen Snow White.
Okay.
And I remember I did watch it quite a bit when I was.
It's probably been about 15 for me. Yeah.
You know, I watched it quite a bit when I was a kid, and it's a lot like some other of the early Disney films. I think they were so different. They were kind of weird, and maybe I didn't like them quite as much. They kind of scared me.
Okay.
Or something. Not 100% sure, but I remember that Snow White was one of those Disney movies that I sort of phased out at a fairly early age.
Okay.
Like maybe you get to the point where you're like in your preteens, you're a boy, maybe I was more interested in the, you know me, I mean, I'm excited for when we get to like the Disney Renaissance.
Sure, absolutely.
So you're thinking to yourself, it's a different time, but I gravitated more towards those than some of those early ones. And when I think about Snow White, I think about how it's so bare bones in its simplicity.
Yes.
Which I think is kind of, obviously, you could make the argument that Disney has better films, perhaps. But the beauty of the simplicity of this movie is great. But also, I really, really appreciate, kind of like when we watch Pinocchio, and we'll talk about that eventually.
Okay.
The animation for this movie, like at the time, and of course it was presented in Technicolor. Like I love.
Oh my God, it's beyond groundbreaking.
Like I was just thinking to myself, like, you know, in terms of like you try to separate yourself. Like if I watched this in theaters in 1937, it's sort of blown my mind.
Oh my God, yeah.
Just to think. The one thing that really impresses me about a lot of these older Disney films, and I guess Snow White was the first real testament to this, is just how much time and detail and effort goes into it. Like so many, I think the backgrounds were painted, and there are some movies that are made today that are animated 2D that I think aren't as well animated as this.
Right.
And that's what impresses me the most.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I
agree with that.
That's fantastic. So animation, obviously, the color palette, beautiful, really fluid stuff. I think.
Let me tell you how many colors they used.
Please
Joe.
do. I'll take a break. And
they used over 1,000 colors.
Okay.
To animate the over 118,000 frames of this film.
And that's why I really
1,000 different colors.
1,000 colors
that Walt had commissioned.
1,000. That's what I'm saying. Like this is early in the days of color.
Very early.
Technicolor. When they have Technicolor, they use it. Reminds me of Robin Hood.
That like, original Robin Hood was fantastic.
Like when we have color,
right around the same
time.
Let's go to the archives, everybody. I believe it was 1935, maybe? 36. I love that it's rated PG, even though PG didn't exist at the time.
Well, you know, there's some violence, I guess.
But they re-rated it. 1938. So basically the same year.
But that's great, and
basically the same year.
To show the different time, obviously color was not as obvious, so you didn't take it for granted. We use color. We're gonna use every color we possibly can find
that we've ever heard of, and make new ones as well.
This is gonna be they probably invented new colors for this movie.
I'm sure they did,
and that's so amazing. So obviously you got that.
Yep.
I will say that as far as Disney musicals go. Obviously, there's a lot of classic tunes that people think about. And going back to this movie, I have two things to say.
Okay.
With the exception of maybe one that obviously everyone knows, that I remember sometimes singing to myself when I'm going to work.
Say Whistle While You Work.
Whistle While You Work.
Or is it Hi Ho, Hi Ho? Okay.
Hi Ho.
Because I guess those are two different songs.
Whistle While You Work, that's also. But there are a couple jingles. But for the most part, there aren't really many like that in this movie. However, this movie is not only is it visually very artistic, it is purely musical. There is music throughout pretty much the whole thing.
Yeah, the orchestration behind the scenes.
And the instrumentation. I really liked how a lot of this movie, and forgive me, if I don't know the technical term, but a lot of times when Snow White's singing or anyone else is singing, there's always the echo, the refrain. That is going throughout the whole movie. And I would think that would get annoying, but it's just at a different tune, and it's usually just a response, literally
like
the same
instrumental
line.
refrain.
And I like how they match a lot of it with the motions of the dwarves, like when they're marching, or when the animals are moving. It is to a beat, and they'll integrate the physical action with the song. I'm like, I don't notice that much anymore. That is really cool.
Well, and I think part of the reason for that is, other than Mickey Mouse and Donald and stuff, Walt was known for these silly symphonies, which I guess, now that I think about it, is probably why Warner Brothers called theirs Merry Melodies. I never thought of that before, but anyway, so silly symphonies, and it was basically just that. It was trees singing, and it was, you know, different things, but it was all based around music, which, you know, the Merry Melodies, it's called Merry Melodies, I think it's a takeoff now, but there's not really, other than, you know, some of the operatic stuff that Bugs plays on the piano, there's not much music in the Looney Tunes cartoons.
Not really.
You know, but Walt was always at the foreground of that with the Silly Symphonies.
Which is probably going to, now that I think about it, his passion for integrating visual art with music kind of feeds into what Fantasia would become.
Right.
And like I see elements of that. If there was no dialogue, but everything was just through the movement, it was all naturalistic and the physicality of the characters. Okay, so that's good. All right, so I'm on a roll here, but
I
feel free to just feed in as I go.
Nope. This is perfect.
Okay, I'll get to my negatives, which is it's kind of
Okay.
I'm gonna put it in quotes because it's more funny, it's more funny, but it has to be said.
Interesting.
But okay, I'm sure if we miss any details, we got to go over them. But
Yeah, okay.
As far as the
Look, I think this will be, ladies and gentlemen, probably the longest of any of these Disney reviews because it's the first one. So there's so much to cover
to get
here.
out of the way.
So, like, you know, we're just gonna
We're gonna go.
We're
with it.
gonna
So
just go out.
Hope you're
and-
enjoying
yeah.
it. But basically, this is kind of like quintessential Disney in some ways because it's got the balance of humor and lighthearted family stuff, and I have to say, I appreciate the humor much more than I did when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
I was laughing so much in this movie
Really?
because of the dwarves.
Yeah.
The personalities of the dwarves were great. Their antics were great. Their interactions with each other were great. And I liked that even though I could nitpick and say these characters are not well defined, they're about as one-dimensional as it gets, but they still have fairly defined personalities, which the dwarves at least should. So I really thought there was a lot of great, charming, innocent humor, and a few risque things, like a little bit. Like I thought. You could make. Oh, we're getting into some time period stuff here, but about Snow White kind of being sort of subservient and cleaning and everything. And an interesting thing about Grumpy specifically. Never thought about this, but Grumpy, though he's not my favorite dwarf, you can guess who that is. Grumpy is the most complicated dwarf in terms of characterization because he's got. I never thought, okay, obviously when you're a kid, he's just the grumpy dwarf. That's his thing, his shtick. He's just grumpy, huh? But Grumpy.
But now you think, why?
He's grumpy for a reason.
Right.
And I never picked up on this before, but wicked whales. Well, what are wicked whales? I don't know, but we're gonna get him. We're gonna get affected. Like he's really paranoid about women. It seems he doesn't like women. He had an issue. I'm wondering, did somebody disappoint him?
Right.
Somebody break? Like Grumpy. Grumpy has a little bit of an arc in this movie.
He actually does a little bit.
And I was like, oh, and I always thought it was interesting, like Snow White, that was kind of one of the really the biggest thematic arc in the movie is like Snow White's loved by everybody, but this one guy's just like, I won't trust you.
Right.
And
well, she's not loved by the Wicked Queen.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Obviously, she's not loved by everybody. Exceptions. But okay, the one person that's essentially evil, that
he's at least not trying to kill her like she is.
The one person that she wants to like her that doesn't, is there. So I thought that was interesting.
Okay.
Guess who my favorite dwarf was? I liked a lot. I liked them all.
My guess is Doc.
Yes,
of course.
Because and I never.
Of course.
Because like
tell me.
Oh, all right. First of all, the wordplay. Like, first of all,
great wordplay.
Almost everything in this movie, everybody's rhyming, which is great. It's like a fairy tale. But he's obviously like the smartest one. He's the oldest one. He's the leader. But he just keeps fumbling over his words. But he has all this clever wordplay, both intentional and unintentional. And I love how
he stumbles over his words a lot. It's funny.
I love how Grumpy is always messing him up. It's just like, shut up, like
Who's my favorite?
Oh shoot,
it's so easy.
Is it? Is it Dopey?
Yes.
Dopey's great.
Dopey.
Oh,
I will listen.
No,
when
he is.
I was a kid.
He is great. They're all great.
I had a little bit of a crush on Dopey.
What? Because he was the only one that had a beard?
I think it's because he was the only one with blue eyes. He had that like classic little. They all have brown eyes except for Dopey.
Oh. Which, by the way.
And I just thought he had a cute grin because he was Dopey.
You know what I realized though?
What?
And see if you can back me up. Dopey might be Dopey, but I don't think that necessarily translates to dumb.
No, it doesn't.
I used to think it did. Like, oh, he's the dumb one. No, he's a bit dopey. He's a bit,
silly,
airheaded. He's a little clumsy.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a ditz.
He's a little bit of a ditz, but he's not stupid.
No.
He's not. He's maybe a little slower, but he's not stupid.
No, he's not.
And I was like,
he's my buddy.
And I liked that. Dopey. I literally for most of my life I thought that Dopey was the dumb dwarf. Mm-hmm. That's not really accurate.
No,
not really.
Fair. This is.
See, I told
really
you.
Got a lot out of this.
I know, and this
it's making me happy.
And this is the thing, and I've still got a lot more to go.
Okay.
Because I thought I was going to hate this. I'm like, Snow White.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I'm like, all right, well...
You thought the same about Pinocchio until I showed that to you.
This is what I'm saying.
I think Pinocchio is next in the lineup, by the way.
Nice. I'd like to talk about that again.
Yeah.
But like I said, the early Disney movies, I'm like, they're kind of simple. I like the later ones.
Good, then I'm glad.
Like, but obviously, I appreciate film, and I'm just like, so it's good to look at it with fresh perspective.
This is one of my all-time favorite animated films.
Okay.
It was my favorite Disney movie my whole life up until Beauty and the Beast came out, 91. But I loved Snow White. I saw it, let's see. I saw it when I was really little, and then I saw it again in 87 when they released it.
Nice.
And then, of course, in 93 I took my brother to it. But, of course, since you didn't have, we must have watched it a lot. They must have run it on the ABC Wide World Disney or something, and we must have taped it, because we definitely watched it more than just a few times in the theaters. And by 94 I was almost out of high school, so I still remember watching it a lot as a kid. But... so we must have taped it, but I have always liked this movie. But yeah, like yourself, I hadn't seen it in a long time. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I got that much more out of it now than I did 15 years ago, because I was still an adult then.
Uh-huh. See, I haven't watched it since
since you were a kid,
basically,
yeah.
Probably.
So it's interesting. Your totally different perspective.
I've got more.
I know you do, and I'm excited to hear about it.
Okay. Now,
oh my God, what is this going to be?
A couple things. Some things that I'm sure have been covered in certain articles or videos over time. Snow White, don't think less of me here, okay? Because this is Snow White. How old is she supposed to be? 15, 16?
Yeah, I think she's a teenager. Yeah.
Okay, first thing, when she is waking up. Okay, the voice she's making, I don't know if the director was I don't know
if this at the end of the movie, you mean?
Before, no.
Waking up from the kiss?
She makes these like, oh, like she's. I'm just like, what? This is weird. This is weird. So I'm sorry. I'm putting. I don't know if that was intentional.
Okay.
But did you notice that?
I didn't.
Okay. Well, the way she's like, she has this really like.
She does some of that in her singing though. She does like a little moan singing.
No, literally when she's like waking up in the morning, she's like doing this moaning thing. And
is she only supposed to be like 16 or something?
I think so.
Okay.
Which kind of opens up another issue.
I haven't really thought much about it, I guess. But.
Well, it's okay. This is where I'm saying is that simple fairy tale.
Right.
We're looking at it 80 years later.
Right.
Or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, you've got some, obviously some underwritten elements.
God, it really is. It's 80
some years.
81 years later.
I looked it up. It's like 82 or something.
Okay.
But yeah, so obviously we've got the simplicity of a fairy tale. And we're looking at it 80 years later, so we gotta say, we gotta take things in context.
Right.
But Snow White is one of the most one-dimensional, underwritten Disney princesses, even though she's iconic.
Of course.
But much like Dopey, I did think to myself, Snow White, like this particular version of Snow White, she's literally white bread, she's boring, nice princess, and I'm like, okay, but she does have a character that I do like. Mm-hmm. She is very nice, and she's sweet, and she's helpful, and she's not a complete idiot.
When she gets into their house,
she's like the mother.
She's like, oh, well, these guys don't have a mother. Yeah, she wants to take care of them.
And she does, and she does it in exchange for living there.
Right.
And the whole scene where, like, they're going to wash their hands, she's like, I know you didn't wash your hands. Like, you can't eat until you do. Like, and I like that. And I think the love story isn't really with the prince that just fell in love with her because he heard one song and was like, oh, I love you now. I have a song to say, which was also underwritten and opens up a lot of other questions. But whatever, the real love story is between her and the dwarfs.
Correct.
And I like that, which I think is obviously the core of the movie. It's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Right.
So that was cool. So I like that about Snow White. However, my nerd brain, plot holes abound.
Okay.
Major plot holes abound, which we have to acknowledge, which is funny, which is like, okay, Snow White is not dumb, except when she has to be. Like, okay, I'm on the run, and I'm fine that you're on the run, you're hiding out from these dwarves, but you're not going to tell them what's going on, and I know maybe she did off scene, but we don't know. We don't see any of that. You think she'd be more concerned, and that makes me think, well, maybe Snow White's just really naive and doesn't know what to do. Like I said, there's a lot of...
I think she probably is.
Probably. But even more of a plot hole. Oh, God. Even more of a plot hole, okay? The evil queen, who is both one of the best Disney villains, but also there's a reason why she's not in, like, the top 10 for a lot of people.
Right.
Because she's dumb. She's ineffective as hell. I'm sorry. Like, I'm like, okay, I give you points because the visuals. She looks great.
Oh, yeah.
She's evil. One-dimensional, but she's evil.
Oh, yeah.
But she's no Maleficent. She's not that level. And you know why? Well, first of all, all right, if you want to kill Snow White, there are so many other ways you could do it than to send the huntsman.
She wanted that huntsman to kill her.
You could, but I'm like, you're an evil queen who I think theoretically has an army, yet there's nobody else in this castle. So okay, so there.
I guess.
Okay, but there's that. Fine.
Okay.
We'll get past that. Fine. We'll just chalk it up to her being evil, which when she transforms into the evil witch-looking thing, that is great. Pretty gnarly. It's great visuals, and you can tell. I guess we can pass it off to her just enjoying being evil, and I think that of all the Disney villains, I think she enjoys being evil the most. Like, she seems to like it. She's up there.
Cruella de Vil.
Like I said, she's up there.
But she's up there.
She's up there.
I'll give you that.
However, once again, she concocts this really elaborate supervillain plan. By the way, the ingredients. How did she capture a cackle? Like,
she got it. Don't you worry. That's where her army was the whole time.
she took the souls of all these people into these bottles, like these abstract concepts. Like, how did you get these ingredients? That was great. I love how they're all labeled black arts, potions. Like, you guys weren't super creative with that. But anyway, we get the point.
Well, they had to be
obvious for what she's got.
Yeah.
But the thing is, she does the whole evil apple thing, and once again, I'm like, I guess you're right. She must not have any soldiers or things she could. There's just so many more efficient ways she could do this. Like, the little men. I gotta go into disguise.
Doesn't it give a villain some pleasure to do it themselves? To really knock it out of the park themselves?
Yes. And that's why it's okay. I'm thinking to myself, when you're getting caught up in the spectacle of it, it doesn't really matter. But if you do take a second to think about it, you're like, Evil Queen, you probably could have done this 100 ways and not risked being a dunce and getting yourself, like, falling off the cliff,
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But also, final note, I guess before on my rant here, not only was it really funny, but...
My yawn did not indicate I wasn't... I was
so
done
tired
with
of it.
It's just like 2 in the morning.
Oh, boy. No, it is late. But, no, but basically my final note for thoughts on the movie, I think when I say it's quintessential Disney, this establishes early on that even though it's a kids movie,
set the template.
Sets the template for it's fun. There's a lot of humor, colorful animation, a good story at the heart, but also moments that are really dark, like
in the beginning,
like this movie starts
very
off
dark.
Like literally, this is 1937, which is probably a little before the ratings got really crazy. But you've got this evil queen who's talking about killing this girl by having a hunter go stab her and carve out her heart and serve it. This is like PG-13 at least.
Yeah, this would be PG-13 today for sure.
Like, there's some dark stuff in this movie, and I'm like, what? And that's kind of, oddly enough, a recurring theme with Disney forever.
Well, it really is. I mean, in those first few movies, I think, Bambi's in one of the first few, Pinocchio, they all, Dumbo, they all have some very dark parts. All right, well, let me just... I mean, you touched on so many things.
Well, please echo any of it you're thinking about.
Well, I think this movie is certainly better for the historical standpoint than anything.
Okay.
Because my biggest problem with it is it just wraps up so quickly. It's, I get that it's only 83 minutes, but she doesn't even eat the apple until like 8 minutes till the end.
I was kind of thinking that.
So,
it feels like we're still getting somewhere, and then it kind of is in the third act.
I think obviously you have to take it for what it is, because obviously they were already massively over budget.
Yeah.
But this is the story that Walt wanted to tell. He didn't want to flesh it out too much. There's tons of not tons, but there's like 5 deleted scenes on the DVD.
Oh.
That actually, some of them were fully animated as well and just cut, which must have been crazy expensive
at the time. Yeah.
But Walt wanted this to be a tight story. So he, purposely had it tight. But I feel like it's just it's over so quickly. She eats the apple. They mourn her. He kisses her. She wakes up.
Movie's over.
The end.
Whoa.
I think if this were released today, there'd be at least 50 minutes between the apple. Like, she'd be dead half the movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Or in the coma or whatever.
When I say it's underwritten, I'm like, there's some more stuff we could flesh out.
I definitely think that is its biggest downfall. But when you consider the time, when you consider everything, you sort of have to give it a pass, because it's like nobody had ever seen
or done this,
any kind of thing like this before. So there was no formula. This was brand new
template. Yeah.
So I like that. I didn't like that, but I can accept it.
You can accept it.
Lots of peril and violence early on. I wrote that down because, the scene where she's running through the woods and falls in the hole. That was
intense.
Terrifying.
I was actually pretty scared for her, actually.
I was a little scared for her.
Yeah, and I did like the fact that we don't know whether it's magic that the trees are alive or that's her mind.
Yes. Oh, and actually, yes, I talked about the moving trees to attack her.
It's creepy.
Which I found out in one of the little segments on the DVD, that Walt had his staff, the silly symphonies and all of those, even Mickey Mouse cartoons, he had them, any idea he had for Snow White, he had them incorporated into one of the shorts to see if it would work, how it would translate to the screen, how it would be animated, and the moving trees was a big thing. There was a whole silly symphony about the trees singing.
Nice.
And that's how they got the movements of the trees. So
cool.
But I noticed that right away when I was watching, long before I even watched the documentary. I was like, that's, for the time, that is really very well animated.
Definitely.
So I agree with everything you said about the animation. The coloring, all of that, I agree, of course, with all that. There's nothing more to add there. I thought it was interesting that Grumpy says all females are poison. I wrote that line down specifically. Obviously, the time. I think
there's an element of that throughout the movie a little bit.
A recurring theme of these early Disney movies is going to be that the princesses are helpless, there's sexism.
Racism.
So, we don't have to necessarily go on that. Hey, speaking of the racism, I'm going to get to Song of the South at some point.
Oh, no.
All right, talent show portion. Yeah, so there's like an 8-minute scene.
The Dwarfs should have a band.
Where the Dwarves have a talent show, which is great. I enjoy the Dwarf talent show.
I forgot all about it.
But it was fun, wasn't it?
I loved it.
But here's my question. In watching, the documentary, it talked about some of the deleted scenes and why they were excised and stuff. And there was like a scene about Grumpy and I think it was Doc arguing about whether she should even stay there, which we sort of see a little bit of that in the movie, but then there's a whole addition, 2 minutes to the scene. And then there's one about they're having breakfast together and they're singing a song over breakfast or whatever. And the reason they were excised was Walt said, oh, well, they don't really add to the story. I like them. They're cute. But then as I'm watching the documentary, I'm like, well, wait a second. You had an 8-minute talent show portion.
It really added to the story.
I don't know if that added to the story so much.
Gags? The gags?
There were some gags. I mean, it certainly added to their camaraderie. And it added to her being more incorporated into their world and the family and stuff. So I get that. I don't know if it needed to be so long if he was looking to tighten things up, but okay.
Side note, did you like the fact that they were going to sacrifice Dopey to die?
I did not care for that.
Just I go into the door first. That was a pretty good gag.
But I mean, those were pretty much all my major themes that you really, did not touch on. But everything you say, I mean, I pretty much agree with it. Certainly, it set the template for especially princess stories, but really, even looking at something like Pinocchio, which we will be very soon, it is that there's a good mix of jokes, seriousness, arcs for the characters.
Yeah.
And this really set the tone. Obviously, movies existed, so it's not like Walt was completely reinventing the wheel here. But he sort of did.
In a way.
He invented a different kind of wheel, I guess, maybe.
A more faster, thinner wheel.
I don't know. Because clearly the themes of, like, here's the structure of a movie existed.
Sure.
But not in animation. And that's the real groundbreaking element of this. The story itself is good, and I think you have hit on some very good concepts and stuff that maybe Walt was going for and maybe he wasn't. It's honestly hard to tell.
But it's solid for what it is. I mean, a fairy tale.
But it's solid for what it is. It's, based on a cute, fairy tale. Well, I guess
cute.
None of the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales or the Grimms were cute.
No.
Especially the Grimms, and I guess this was a Grimm, right?
I believe it was Grimm, and I noticed she was wearing the Dutch shoes. I never picked up on that. Like,
that
it
makes sense.
It is supposed to be in
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Speaking of which, so popular that they translated into 20 countries, and not only just put the movie out there with different voices, but like how their names were all carved into the bed, they reanimated those whole portions of the movie in different languages. The storybook at the beginning and the end were in the different languages. When she's looking in the potion book, different language.
Cool.
So even more animation. But I do like I didn't really touch on this, but the storybook motif of having it open with the, once upon a time, da-da-da-da-da.
Another ones did that too, I'm pretty sure, for a while.
And that was, something that Walt started, which I thought was a little interesting because a lot of kids watching that movie probably couldn't read it. So I'm sure maybe their parents read it to them aloud or something on the screen, but yeah, I thought that was a cool motif. He did it at the end as well with the happily ever after and all that, so I liked that. That's all really I have about the movie specifically.
All right.
I think obviously it's an A+. I mean, how could it not be? It is one of the... is this not an A+ for you? I'm going to lose it.
I mean, like, we got... Right, what about all those massive plot holes?
Hold on.
What about...
There's a few plot holes.
A few?
I'm not going to concern myself with that. I'm also not going to concern myself with the fact that she eats the apple and then 8 minutes later is revived. But...
Also, by the way...
And the songs are not...
You didn't have a spell that could just put the apple and kill her and not make it a sleeping death for his love for his kiss. Once again...
What kind of story do you want? Okay? It's already only 83 minutes. You want a 17-minute movie?
I guess...
And 8 minutes is the talent show?
Alternative Snow White and the Huntsman, have the battle where she falls in love with that. I mean, to be fair, not as good of a movie, but more interesting plot dynamics.
It's sort of like how... I grade the pilot to a TV show, which we talked about on Frasier Friday.
Sure.
This is obviously the first of its kind. It broke new ground in literally every way possible. I can't in good conscience give this anything less than an A+. If it didn't hold up, if the animation looked terrible, if the story wasn't engaging, if it wasn't funny, if some of the songs weren't very memorable, I could say, okay, maybe it does. But I'm sorry, this is an absolute American treasure. It's a classic. There's no way I'm giving it less than an A+.
All right. Well, I mean,
if you want to give it a C, that's your business.
I'm not going to give it a C.
You're going to D- it.
Look, I'm going to give it an A+
too,
because I do think it is an incredibly important film.
It's such an achievement
that it holds up very, very
well.
They
made a special Oscar for him and gave it to him.
I got you, and 7
little mini ones.
I thought was cute. That is cool. I got a lot more out of it than I thought I would.
Yeah,
and I would have put an asterisk though. There are There are things
Look, were this released today,
we know.
Of course, it would be more of a B, probably.
Probably, but you know what?
If I'm going to be honest.
But this is a game changer, though.
It's a game changer.
Like, we probably would not have Disney as we know it today if it was not for this movie.
No, and if this movie wasn't a success, we wouldn't have Disney at all because it would have bankrupted the studio.
So it's like, on addition, it is important, too. But, it's great.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. I have no problem with it at all.
Yeah,
not really.
I'm not saying that there's no problems with it.
But
I do agree. The songs...
the song, like, we're talking about,
other
like,
than My Prince is Gonna Come and the two Dwarf songs, they're mostly fairly forgettable. I don't deny that.
But the music is
good. The music, like you mentioned, the score.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's something, which I think I heard somewhere before, but they said it on the documentary. First ever movie soundtrack album.
Really?
They had nobody ever thought to, and they thought it was stupid. Another, Walt, you're an idiot.
No one's going to listen to music from the movie.
Nobody's going to like this, and which is weird to me because
the soundtracks are so big.
When Sound Pictures started, they did all those, like the Broadway Melody of 1930. It was all so many musicals. It's weird that they didn't think to put out a record album.
Huh.
But they did for this.
That's weird.
So that's the movie and the history of the movie.
Yes.
But now all of the great
features
on the thing. Now, first of all, I'm just going to talk about some other things here.
Sure.
Not only was it the first soundtrack, first time ever, merchandise was available the same day the movie premiered.
What?
So Walt was so big on this movie, he licensed all this crap before anyone even saw it.
Huh.
So he was really genius.
On promotional deals.
Genius.
Too. Wow.
Okay. So here were a couple of abandoned projects that did not see the light of day. There was going to be an Atari 2600 game.
Oh, for Snow White.
That never saw. Yeah, for Snow
But
White.
In 1937, they were going to have the Atari first. I was like,
whoa! Since then, there are projects that they've abandoned.
Okay.
And then there was also going to be a Dwarfs prequel in the early 2000s that was canceled in 2006.
I can see that as a DVD thing.
When Disney bought Pixar.
I can see it.
And what was interesting was it was going to focus on 30 years before. We were going to find out why Dopey lost his voice.
Oh, because he never did learn to speak.
Which apparently had something to do with his mother getting murdered. Another classic Disney trope right there.
Oh, my goodness.
So anyway, that didn't happen. So a couple of abandoned projects. But there may be a live-action adaptation coming, as usual. But also
Snow White and the Huntsman 3.
A spin-off, kind of like Maleficent, about Snow White's sister called Rose Red. So that might be interesting.
Interesting.
All right. So now this that I have is the DVD, the first DVD version. Like I mentioned, there's been 2 Blu-rays since, with some of them have different bonus materials. I'm going to order the latest Blu-ray and see what the differences are. But this was another groundbreaker. Leave it to Snow White again.
Sure.
But this is early in the days of DVD. This thing is so interactive. The magic mirror does all the menus.
Cool.
They re-recorded all this new stuff for the mirror to say. Roy Disney, who is Roy Disney Sr.'s son, comes out and does like a routine with the magic mirror. He introduces all the features. He's like, okay, now if you want to learn about this, click on this. If you want to learn about this, click on this. If this will tell you this. This will have all the trailers. This will do this.
It's pretty innovative.
Very innovative.
Wow.
And then you have your friend and mine, Angela Lansbury, narrating like half the different things on this DVD.
Oh, nice, Mrs. Potts
Because of
herself.
course she's Mrs. Potts, and she also did all the live action stuff.
And when Snow White was poisoned, they were thinking about getting her because of Murder, She Wrote. So she would have figured it out. Well, you see,
You're right. Good old Cabot Cove. But some of the interesting things that are on these, there's a whole list of rejected dwarf names. Of which I can't really remember any right now, but they were all like in that vein.
Okay.
Some of them were like rhyming. There was an interesting one where it showed how all these sound effects were made, which I've always been intrigued in as a radio person. Like old radio plays, like with the different sound effects, I've always been intrigued about like how you make different things. So there was a whole thing about that. They showed how they developed a lot of the Snow White characters with animation from their shorts, like I said.
Nice.
studying live action movements. They would have people dress up as the dwarves or as the witch and move, so the animators could really get how because all the dwarves moved like in this sort of,
they all moved
like bounced a little bit.
Real people.
They all moved like real people, which cartoons at that time did not do. You look at the Betty Boop cartoons, for example.
Yeah,
didn't happen. What else? All the colors, yes. All the languages.
1,000 colors.
Okay. Oh, and so Disc 2 has 190 minutes of different previews. All the trailers, every trailer for every re-release is on there, and then there's this one that I couldn't even get through because it was too long and I had a time crunch. But the history of Disney, and it goes decade by decade with a new narrator for each one.
Whoa.
I mean, when you think about it, since this was the first Disney animated DVD, they may as well go pretty hard. And then the other thing I thought was very interesting that I learned was the 93 theatrical release became the first film ever to be entirely scanned into digital files, then manipulated and recorded back onto film. So, again, setting the template.
Redigitizing HD.
And this is back in 93, when...
That's the beginning of all that.
Crazy. Because they said on the thing, they were like, well, for the 87 restoration, we used, like, these prints, but then by the time 93 came around, even they looked crappy, even though it was only 6 years difference. So, it's a great DVD set. Obviously, you can't find that one anymore. That's been in the vault for...
years and years.
15 years or whatever it is. But a lot of those same features I know are on at least the first Blu-ray they released, probably the second one as well. So the set gets an A+ as well for me. I mean, you can't ask for any more than that.
Great.
So, yeah, I don't anticipate, like I said, any of the other Disney videos to be quite this long.
I don't know. They might be.
I mean, there's many things to talk about, but I don't... The rich history of this movie, I think, is going to cover more, than anything. I mean, this is about an hour long so far.
Well, I guess we'll see.
But I guess we'll see. I mean, I think they're in release order, if you want to look down there. I think Pinocchio is the second one. It's on that shelf down there.
Yeah, Pinocchio is the second one.
Yeah, Pinocchio. So we'll do that. And it'll be interesting because Dumbo live action's coming out.
Now.
Well, right now.
Right.
It's in theaters, so we'll get to look at the animated Dumbo
shortly,
which I saw I think about 6 or 7 years. It was during when we were doing Film Fanatics and we did like the top 10 animated classics or whatever. I watched Dumbo, but
that's another one I probably haven't seen in like 20 years.
Yeah, I actually had never seen it before that.
Really?
I did not watch it as a kid for some reason.
Huh?
Wasn't in the library at my house.
Big ears.
He does have big ears. I admit that.
Spoilers.
But, yes, listen. Hopefully you don't come to my Disney reviews looking for no spoilers. I mean, we're going to tell you what's happening. These movies have been 80 years,
I'm sorry.
Oh, my God.
The one guy comes to me. I liked your video, but you spoiled so much on every... Well, what do you...
I can't believe she woke up from that kiss. But listen... Classic to the end, this movie.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's nothing else to say about that. Enjoy all of the many new facets of the channel. You've got Frasier Fridays. You've got Food Fanatics, which we have 2 of them coming up after Lent's over, and I can eat certain things again. You've got what else? I don't even know what else. Well, all the Oscar stuff is done. Disney stuff. What I don't even know what we're gonna call this.
Disney Classics.
Disney Classics. But it's lit. Yeah, but I'm gonna review all of them, like all the live action ones too. I don't know.
Dan
does Disney. You always come up with the names on the fly.
It's one thing I'm good at, I guess.
Man, are you good? Food Fanatics you came up with.
I like alliteration. What can I say?
Dan does Disney. I think that's perfect.
Cool, if you like it.
I think it's good. Yeah. So we'll do that. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. Hopefully you stuck with us the whole time. Hopefully you learned some things.
I learned some stuff.
I think that's kind of the point,
It's more to educate you about stuff you might not know.
It's easy to go say, I watched Aladdin and it was funny. Like,
Really?
I watched Lion King. It made me sad.
We're trying to find a little stuff, some stuff that's new that you might not have heard
maybe
about.
You might not know, and a lot of it obviously will probably come from the supplemental features on the DVDs.
Sure.
But whatever. So hopefully you learned something. But thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye.
See ya.